You're live to YouTube.
Check, check. Radio check. 1, 2, 3.
believe so. Yep.
All right, we are live. Welcome, bienvenue en ligne. I'd like to thank our media and broadcast partners who are covering tonight's meeting and begin our meeting in a good way as we do by acknowledging with respect that we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawating. Bawating is home to Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Madam Clerk.
Under agenda item 2, I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Vezo-Allen resolved that the minutes of regular council meeting of August 11, 2025 be approved.
All in favor? That carries.
I have not received any declarations of pecuniary interest.
Council? Seeing none.
Under agenda item 5, a motion by Councillors Scott and Vezo-Allen resolved that the agenda for September 2, 2025 City Council meeting as presented be approved.
All in favor? That carries.
And we do have a planning application. It's the city's planning application A825Z with respect to parking amendments. There's a motion by Councillors Gardy and Vezo-Allen resolved that the report of the junior planner dated September 2, 2025 concerning application A825Z parking amendments be received and that council approve the amendments listed in Appendix A and that the legal department be requested to prepare the necessary bylaw to effect the same.
Mr. Tenazo.
Thank you, Mayor Shoemaker. This is a city-initiated series of zoning amendments to the parking section of the zoning bylaw. Essentially, the reforms reduce minimum parking requirements by varying degrees depending on location, either in the downtown, other strategic development areas, or the remainder of the city. There's also updates to barrier-free parking, including the amount of barrier-free spaces required and some minor amendments to the overall design of such spaces. Also introduces new minimum bike parking requirements for larger scale developments and EV readiness requirements for larger scale residential developments. I'm available should council have any questions. Thank you.
Council questions? Anybody here to speak in opposition to the parking amendments? And anybody here to speak in favor of them? Okay, seeing none, we can have a vote on that matter. All in favor? That carries.
It's a little late.
Mr. Vezo-Allen
Councillor Kinnick? Councillor Gardy?
is in favor. Councillor Gardy and Councillor Vezo-Allen. Okay.
Okay, that says unanimously.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Brings us to consent.
Items on consent, Council. Councillor Kinnick.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Rumio. So of the request in your report for the 500,000, how many kilometers are we able to pave with that sum of money?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, that depends on a lot of things. So, for example, this year we resurfaced a 4-lane road in Wallace Terrace for $2 million for about a kilometer. So, I mean, translating that, you'd be about a quarter of a kilometer if it was a 4-lane road. So it's a minor increase. It would be a minor increase to the current paving program.
Seems to be some technical difficulties with a few computers. And just a reminder to council, because I know I've had this feedback from folks watching at home. If you're speaking into the mic, speak into the mic. Otherwise, the folks at home have a hard time hearing us. Councillor Kinnick, can I come back to you? Okay, go ahead.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, again to Mr. Rumio, what was the average over the last 5 years for the road repair program? And this ask would be how much of an increase for that?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Kinnick, I believe the average over the last 5 years was 18.4 million.
So that's, so $500,000 more is quite a low number of an increase for you.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Kinnick, we're not asking for any increase right now. I believe that section of the report was just saying that we will be asking for an increase at budget time of an operating increase to 500,000.
Thank you. That's it for that.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnick. Others on 7.2, Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Ramil. Mr. Ramil, can you just identify most of the roads that are in poor conditions? Are these main roads or are we looking at more residential roads?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Caputo, the bulk of the roads in poor or worse condition are residential roads.
Okay, and in order to repair them to the state that they need to be, these would be, we're not looking at repaving roads, we're looking at, actually, you go ahead. What would we be doing to the roads?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Caputo, the nature of the repairs required for most of those roads would be full reconstruction due to the age and lack of granular base below the asphalt.
And in the case that we were to invest fully in this and have the roads at, good condition by 2036, I believe was the number. How long do we expect these roads to last? Like if we reconstruct a road, full reconstruction, how many years usually does that road stay in good condition for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor to Councillor Caputo, I believe the design life of a full reconstruction, like the sewers, all granular base, everything would be in the 50-year range, but we're certainly getting much more life out of roads than that. For perspective, these roads that are failing now are early 1900s.
Wow, okay. And then through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Facey, you identified the funding gap as $11 million per year to bring our roads to a fairer, better condition through 2034. You also said that the Northern Comparators debt sits around $1,750 per capita, and we're only around $280 per capita for debt. If we were to bring our debt to that average of $1,750 per capita, where would that put the city in relation to the $11 million increase goal?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to get the city of Sault Ste. Marie to our northern comparators for debt per capita, the difference is about $112 million. We currently have $21 million on our books between us, PUC, and the library. So the gap between us and the northern comparators is about $112 million that could go to these roads initiatives, and that's part of the flexibility that we have for funding.
And then can you just explain to us, how does incurring debt, how does that affect the tax levy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, depending on the type of initiative, it could impact the tax levy. Capital initiatives such as for, say, the biosolids or other initiatives that we've brought to council before may not be funded by the tax levy, but rather the water and sewer rates. If it's a tax-supported initiative and the recommendation is to fund by debt, we need to budget for both the principal and interest payments, which could impact the tax levy or increase the tax levy, depending on if that's the best way to fund the principal and interest payments. So additional debt most likely aligns with a higher tax levy.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Councillor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to Mr. Rumio. Regarding the 33% of our roads that are in poor or very poor category, you mentioned that a whole construction would be required for each of these roads. Are there some roads that just need basically resurfacing and not going into the sewers and the main water lines, et cetera?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bruni, absolutely. There's going to be a handful of those that require less of an investment, but for the most part, the ones that are poor or worse are due to age. Like early 1900s construction, they used very shallow base, and on top of that, a lot of the sanitary and storm sewers and water mains are coming of age as well. So not necessarily the wisest investment to resurface roads where not enough base or the pipes are going to need some attention in the next few years as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple questions. The first one through you to Mr. Rumiel. Mr. Rumiel, in the course of preparing this report, did staff consider a more robust crack sealing program for any of our roads? And is that part of what's proposed being funded through the increase to miscellaneous construction?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, we do crack sealing from time to time. We have been in the last couple of years. That's an area where we sort of in the balancing effort to try to pave as many kilometers as possible. We've gotten away from that a bit. So if we had an added amount for resurfacing, we could look at slurry sealing or crack sealing, which would definitely help our main arteries in maintaining some of their longer life.
And if I'm reading the report correctly, Mr. Rumiel, most of the very poor and poor roads are smaller residential roads that would not be affected by a crack sealing program. But if we did increase crack sealing on the arterials, we would get a longer service life out of those higher demand roads.
That's correct. They would be directed to arterial roads.
And in the past, crack sealing has largely been funded by miscellaneous construction, or is there another capital line for that?
It's been through the asphalt resurfacing program, miscellaneous construction.
Okay, thank you. My other question, it's really great that you guys gave us the BMA study highlights. I was just wondering, do we know how much of debt other municipalities in our comparator group are using to reconstruct smaller residential roads? I don't know if that would be through you, to you or Mr. Facey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the majority of debt, the majority of the projects that recommended, or sorry, that use debt as a recommended funding source are for new initiatives or expansion of existing services. So an expansion of a road, a new facility, a new building, et cetera. So to reconstruct the existing roads or your existing asset base, the examples of using debt to fund that is very, very low in our comparators.
Yeah, that was kind of my understanding around how other municipalities use municipal debt. I mean, kind of looking at some of the more detailed spreadsheets that were sent out and seeing some of the roads that were in poor to very poor condition. I mean, I think it would be kind of be a tough sell to say that we want to debt finance, a $4 million residential street that only has 25, 30 addresses. With some of the cost escalations that add to that. But that said, I do think that the crack sealing portion and the increase to miscellaneous construction, I think that does a lot to speak to residents' concerns with the roads. I think many residents, when they talk about the roads, are primarily referring to probably more of our arterial and our collector streets that do get a lot of abuse, and extending the longevity of those roads, I think, would be a really great initiative to look at come budget time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Rumiel, I believe first. When the report speaks to the condition of the roads, I know we've talked a lot tonight about things underneath the road base and the sewers and whatnot underneath. When the report is speaking to the conditions, is it speaking only to road surface and say curb surfaces, or is it speaking to the entire infrastructure underneath as well?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, we've taken the other assets, the sanitary, the storm sewer, out of the equation for the purposes of this report. So if you look at our actual capital transportation program, that includes the pipes and below, but we've taken those out just to compare roads, because that's how the resolution was worded.
Okay, so this is just road surfaces.
Correct.
However, the information you're providing us is stuff we need to know in order to make an informed decision, basically saying, hey, if you open the roads, these other issues are going to come up.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, that is correct, because there are two other asset reports for the sanitary and the stormwater management. So we're just focused on the roads.
Right. So it would be beneficial for us to look at those reports in totality before making any decisions.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And the only other question for Mr. Facey, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Facey, along the lines of what Councillor Caputo was asking about for the debt financing. You mentioned it most likely would have an impact on the levy if we debt financed a lot of these repairs. Are you suggesting that we finance the remaining amount above and beyond what we've already budgeted? Or are you suggesting that we finance the entire amount and use what we've budgeted as the mechanism to pay the interest and principal each year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, for these initiatives and rehabilitating existing assets, this is more of a budgetary conversation, but debt would probably not be recommended because there's required investment year over year of additional. It's more of an ongoing cost, an annual requirement. So debt would probably debt typically looks at new assets or addressing a backlog per se. But if this is going to be an ongoing issue, debt would probably not be the recommended funding source, but just tackling this over time.
Right, so what would be the recommended funding source for this, in your opinion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in the report, we show how much of the roads program is government funding from our senior levels of government. It's about 80% on average per year. So we try to maximize our government funding as much as we can. We look at available programs. But if it was council's wishes to invest additional funds into the roads program, it would most likely be on the tax levy on an annual basis.
Right, so if we want to get our roads to a condition that our citizens would all like to have it, it would most definitely mean an increase to the tax levy. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. And then the level would be subject to council's decision.
Right, subject to the conversation we have about how many roads per year or how many kilometers per year, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Councillor Bezo-Allen?
Thank you. My question is for Mr. Facey. It was directly from some folks that have been eagerly awaiting road reconstruction on the drive. Mr. Facey, if we go into a debt situation in terms of folks that are expecting, like the drive needs to have complete overhauls, sewer, all of that, would that still affect them in terms of the local improvement tax that would be on their individual taxation, or how would that work? So, you know, they're really not wanting to get hit with like a double increase in tax. However, they are welcoming some alternative financing because they like to get their road done sooner than later.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask if Mr. Romeo wants to touch on the LICs.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bezo-Allen, yes, at this present time, we do charge local improvements for road reconstruction. So they would pay half of the published rate. I don't remember what they are, but it would generally be around $3,000 to $4,000 per house in local improvement charges for a road like the drive.
Okay. And then on top of that, if we choose to go the debt route, then those folks, or anyone who's got road reconstruction and subject to local improvement tax, would also possibly have an increase to the levy overall because of us doing some debt financing for road construction.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the remaining costs would be spread amongst all taxpayers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bezo-Allen. Councillor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Rumio. Do you happen to know our comparators PCI? So our average is 53 out of 100. Do we have any numbers on the comparator cities?
Mayor, to Councillor Scott, I do not have that off the top of my head.
Okay. Is that something that you could get access to?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott, we did a report a few years ago on comparators of the Northern Ontario municipalities. I could dig that up and share it with you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's everything.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Anyone else? My question's for Mr. Facey on I realize that the report is simply responding to a resolution that requested that specific information, but in most other conversations that we have about debt financing, which everybody acknowledges our level of debt financing at this city is very low. We always talk about it in tandem with our level of reserves, which are also extremely low, which is not necessarily a good thing. So can you suss out for us how the reserves, the reserve level and the debt level need to be compared with other municipalities in tandem?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think both, like you'd like to see an inverse relationship between the two. You'd like to see higher reserves and lower debt if at all possible. For these types of initiatives, if we had the reserves to fund them, we would recommend that to avoid any borrowing costs. Unfortunately, we do not have the level of reserves to fund an additional $11 million in roads per year, which is why debt financing and future levy considerations, those conversations are going to be in the near future and future budget conversations. In terms of reserves, we addressed this, or we looked at this when we were developing our long-term financial plan, and our reserve levels are lower than our target levels for the most part. So come budget time, depending on what the property tax levy looks like and updates to the long-term financial plan, council may see a recommendation from staff to increase our contributions to reserves as well, because we need those for emergency situations, future capital requirements, and it's not great that we have lower than our target levels, our target balances of reserves. So those are all issues that we're facing now.
So if we're looking to debt finance things, having low debt as we currently have is good, but having low reserves as we currently have is bad. So to add to our debt would create a situation where our debt levels were potentially bad and our reserve levels were bad.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. There needs to be some sort of corrective action for either increasing our allocations to reserves or just managing debt appropriately for the organization.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Kinnick, we were on you. You asked about 7.2.
7.3.
7.3 has been pulled.
I do have for 7.4, just one quick question.
Go ahead.
And I believe it's through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Tenazzo. Could you just go over in general how this property is being sold? I know it was bought a while ago, and why is it now just being turned over? Usually, I think we have a little bit quicker turnover in our property sales from purchasing to getting them to market.
Which property specifically?
The Hudson Street.
Studio 10 property.
Studio 10, yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick. So the access to land program, it was first contemplated as an action item in the Sue's Housing Action Plan, which was endorsed by council in December 2023. At that point, the Hudson properties, were identified as being really good properties for this program. So, it took a little bit of time between then and now to get the access to land program together, but it was certainly identified a couple of years ago, which maybe would have been 2 years after the property was sold. So earlier this year in late January, we received federal funding, the Housing Accelerator Fund, and strategically it's important because these are performance-based funds, both our federal and provincial funding. It was important that these properties come online and that homes get built during the funding window. So that's why the timing has essentially been what it is.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnick. Councillor Vezoallen.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Tenazzo. Mr. Tenazzo, can you explain in a little more broader detail on page 5 of the report of the terms and conditions of sale, specifically the buyback clause, if the land is not being put to use that it was intended? So I know for both Councillor Dufour and I, we do deal with derelict properties and properties that have been purchased by out-of-town landlords that are not being kept appropriately. So could you kindly give us the high-level detail of that and how that's going to be monitored?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vezoallen. So essentially the city, because this is the access to land program, the city doesn't want to sell these properties without assurances that something, that housing gets built in accordance with the proposal that was approved and in the timing that was in the proposal. So agreements of purchase and sale will include clauses that require the proposal to be built within a required time frame. And if they're not, then the city has the option to buy back or take back the property for the price that it was purchased for.
And then just my second question is in the parkland analysis. I do like the idea of housing density in already established neighborhoods. So just wondering if the Penhorwood Park property would be considered, especially on the one side where the disc golf isn't, and as well the park at Victoria and Edward, more towards the back end of the Edward side, because that piece is quite vast and it's already surrounded by housing developments.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this will be a difficult exercise. We recognize the importance of parks, and as you add density and increase density, there's a renewed importance for parks. But we haven't looked at any specific parks as of yet. It's going to be an in-depth analysis. We also have to think about some of these rectangular parks that have all the frontage. That also makes them quite safe because you've got eyes looking into the park. So when you start chunking off the the perimeters of the parks, you start losing that. So there's probably not a lot of parks that might be appropriate or portions thereof to be severed away or otherwise sold, but it's going to take a lot of analysis on our part and a lot of public consultation as well.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Nothing else on 7.4.
Thank you, Councillor Vezo-Allen. Anyone else? Councillor Caputo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Tanasso. Mr. Tanasso, 72 Corey Avenue is identified here as one of the properties that are selected for round one. I'm curious about that property because it seems to only be available, like you would only be able to put one house on that property. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, that's an old right-of-way or an unopened right-of-way. It's the Wyber Street right-of-way. So it's 66 feet wide, 20 meters wide by about 150 feet long. You potentially could get a duplex on it, but it is a very small property. And you're not going to see a lot of units on that property. But it is a small property and it's development ready.
So I guess my question is, like, are we that far into it where we're looking at just single family? Like, are we this, I don't want to say desperate, but for single family dwellings that we're looking at just these kind of small lots?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess maybe the way to answer that is there's not a lot of city-owned land that's out there that has residential development potential, and this is where we're at, yes.
Okay, and then in reference to that property particularly, one of the things that I heard from my constituents in Manitou Park was that taking away that green space meant that there was not a lot of green space left. And I asked about, where the nearest park was. Are there restrictions on making sure that there is green space still remaining, and does getting rid of this property to potentially put a house on it keep, with these folks still having green space and kids still having space to play in Manitou Park?
Through you, Mayor Shoemaker, that right-of-way was never identified as formal green space or formal parkland. There is a park essentially in the middle of Manitou Park. And then I know that traditionally that right-of-way was used to access lands in behind Manitou Park. But you'll still be able to access those lands. There's the unopened right-of-way at the end of Manitou Drive. So you'll still be able to get back there from the Manitou Park subdivision.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Anyone else on 7.4? Okay, I just wanted to give kudos for the report. I think getting rid of any piece of property starts generating tax dollars that we otherwise aren't getting if we own it. So any piece that we can sell is great. If it gets a development on it, even better. So hopefully that we see that on each one of these properties going forward. And Councillor Kinnick, there was only one other item left on consent. 7.1, anything? Anyone on 7.1? Okay. That brings us to a vote on consent.
Motion by Councillor Dufour, resolved that all items listed under date September 2, 2025, agenda item 7, consent agenda Save and accept agenda item 7.3 be approved as recommended.
All in favor? That carries.
Brings us to agenda item 7.3. It's a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolved that the Director of Tourism and Community Development dated September 2, 2025 concerning tourism Sault Ste. Marie Waterfront Design Funding Agreement be received and that Council approve $190,000 from the miscellaneous construction reserve to be used for the detailed design of the Civic Center section of the Waterfront walkway, and there's also an associated bylaw.
Councillor Scott, you want to pull this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to pull this. I didn't support the initial plan and wanted to continue on with that thought, and especially moving funding from miscellaneous construction reserve right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on 7.3? Councillor Dufour?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question through you to either Tom or Travis. When it comes to funding for the boardwalk, historically, how have we funded previous emergency repairs? I know we did a pretty significant one a couple years ago, and I was just wondering where that funding came from at the time.
Mr. Rumio?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, I believe most of the repairs done by the mall were done through the capital transportation program. There may have been a fund that we secured on a disaster remediation fund. I can't recall. Not sure if Mr. Facey knows.
Would it be accurate to say that previously when the boardwalk has been in need of repair, that capital funding that otherwise could have gone to roads was directed there?
In the past, we have done remediation of the boardwalk through the capital transportation program. As well, there was the wall behind the Villa Santa Maria,
Yeah.
7-Eleven Bay, that was rebuilt as a rock revetment, and we did that as well for lack of other funding sources, I believe.
And then the section by the restaurant at the back, did that also see some city funding as well? The walkway that reconnected the boardwalk?
C and Fed.
Through Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, yes, that came through a funding grant from FedNor.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So it would be accurate to say that we have used capital construction funding for boardwalk repair in the past, boardwalk improvements?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Councillor Kinnick, did you have your hand up?
I just have comments though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So tonight we just heard that our reserve targets are on the lower side. The miscellaneous construction reserve is one of the reserves that is on the lower side. In the past, there's a history for road repair, which was just discussed at 7.2, where we're using this to for asphalt repair and crack repair and stuff like that, and along with bridge maintenance and stuff like that. And the roads, and we also heard at 7.2, the roads are in bad shape. I just don't think this is the right time to move money out of our reserve, which is going to help roads when our roads are in this bad of shape. So for that, I'm going to be voting against that tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Kinnick, Councillor Bruni?
Thank you, Mr. I guess question to Mr. Rumio regarding 190,000 being removed from the construction reserve, miscellaneous construction reserve, and it's for detailed design work. Has that been done before, taking money from that account? And I know Councillor Dufour was speaking on this, but I believe he was speaking about the work being done, the construction work, but this is more design work. So has that occurred before?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, we get an annual allocation of about $1.5 million, and $500,000 of that is to fund studies and engineering reports and that. So yes, we do use it for soft costs. I think the difference between the previous projects is those ones were funded under our capital transportation program, partially at least. This one is through a reserve. It's not canceling any projects, any miscellaneous construction projects. It's just tapping into the reserve that.
You're not canceling any jobs, but you're tapping in exactly what you're saying. So I have a hard time with this, to see the 190,000 coming out of this account. I was hoping it would come out of another reserve. I don't know if Mr. Fazy can recommend if this 190,000 can come from another account reserve.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the reserves that we typically look at come budget time is our asset management reserve, which is used to rehabilitate facilities and other capital requests. We have an emergency allocation in there as well. That is a potential source if you don't want to go down this road, but the recommended funding source for this is the miscellaneous construction reserve at this time.
I guess a question to Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, this is phase one. Is Clerk Park part of the phase one?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Bruni. Phase one is Clerk Park, John Roswell. This additional work that you're speaking of with the 190 is outside of the scope of phase one, specific to the safety and infrastructure issues that are occurring around City Hall.
And would council be able to get the information? What safety issues are we, what work has to be done to keep the area safe? If Mr. Rumio recalls.
Mayor to Councilor Bruni, so for the last 3 or so years, the walkway in front of the building along the waterfront has essentially been closed due to the failure of the sheet pile wall. So we're sort of waiting. It kind of meshes well with the waterfront redevelopment work that should happen at the same time.
If it doesn't happen, what happens then?
Eventually, we would have to do something with the wall, whether it's build another, remove the wall, build a rock revetment, something. Not sure whether that would be funded, but yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bruni. Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Anderson, if we were to hold this, like not approve this today, I guess first, are you draining the MAT fund by taking this amount from it? No.
Through you, Mr. Mayor to Councilor Caputo. We are not, and in fact, we specifically set aside this money for waterfront development in budget year 2024 and budget year 2025. So the money that we are requesting to use is money that has been specifically set aside for waterfront improvements.
And does the additional 190,000 not fit? It does not fall into something that MAT money could cover?
Historically, when you look at the legislation for product development, historically that wouldn't cover something that is deemed an operational, for lack of a better term, failure that's occurring on the wall. That would be more of a maintenance issue. So, I don't think it's something that truly aligns with the MAT. The improvements that we're trying to do certainly do, but, ideally that would come from the engineering source.
So this has sort of fallen in with the waterfront design plan because work is being done sort of right next to it. We should do it, but what you're saying is the funds that you're asking for, the 190,000, is coming from the right place when we take it from that engineering fund.
That's correct. There's a lot of synergies. It makes sense to do all the work now, so it's consistent, common, and there'll be some cost efficiencies in doing so. But in terms of the funding source, yeah, you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor Vezo-Allen.
Thank you. My question was very much in Councillor Bruni's safety concerns. Just a little more detail. So Mr. Ramil, the walkway in front of City Hall on the waterfront has not been accessible for 5 years. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Vezo-Allen, I think it was around the 2023 range that we closed it.
Okay. And then in terms of the way the design is proposed for the walkway right now, Mr. Anderson, so people, if they're coming from, say, the art gallery, they have to go down and around, and they're not able to enter the City Hall property and then continue along. They have to go back down and around in front of Bondar Park. Would that be correct?
Is currently, and we're proposing to make the boardwalk accessible all the way around City Hall over to the Montana's property.
Okay, so right now, our walkway in front of City Hall is not compliant to AODA standards, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vezoelling. Councillor Gardy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've tried to follow the discussion as best I could, so forgive me if a question that I asked was answered sort of already. So, as I understand it, the pool and the beach and some other elements are part of this, correct? Through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry to, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Travis, Mr. Anderson, thank you.
Mr. Gardy, that is correct.
Counselor, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Gardy. Yes, there are two phases or two projects that are being advanced here. One is phase one, which is the pool, the beach, the destination playground. And the second element is the area around the Civic Center.
Mr. Ver is going to add to that.
Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Gardy, I think the other thing I was going to add is really the inclusion of the boardwalk in front of City Hall was identified as an efficiency. If we're engaging the consultants to do the detailed design for the Clerk Park section of the Waterfront Master Plan, it would make sense at the same time to use those consultants to help us do the design for the boardwalk in front of the Civic Center, because we do know it needs to be replaced. It has been closed for a number of years and there's safety concerns. So this is a bit of killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. It's kind of embarrassing, quite frankly, that's been in the condition it's been in for the years that it has been. It's kind of ugly to look at, never mind not being accessible. I'm just trying to kind of balance the concerns that have been raised by my colleagues thus far. So in total, so we're talking how much? 800 and some from the mat and 190 some from the miscellaneous reserve. This is probably not the time, but I'll leave it to you, Mr. Mayor. The more I've reflected on like the pool element of this plan, the more I kind of find it to be not necessarily the wisest kind of decision on our part, considering, it would probably only be used maybe a handful of months a year. So my thoughts were like, how much of this is going towards that element? And could, if we decided moving forward to kind of scale back on like the pool right now as being part of this, for this part of the plan, could we cover the 190? Could the 190, yeah, you understand what I'm saying? Like the 190 be covered by way of whatever, but just taking the 190 out, so we're not spending as much. I just don't know how much the pool costs as part of this plan. And I just think that, to speak to some of the concerns everybody else has mentioned around the table, we have some pressing concerns that we need addressed, and we have some items that, would be somewhat of a luxury to the community and others. So I'm kind of torn on this one, to be honest. I don't know if there's anything that can be done as it relates to like what I'm bringing up, if you guys are able to follow what I'm saying. But I just think having a pool in the St. Mary's River is something that maybe we can like slowly pump the brakes on a little bit and still have some other elements, but that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Gardy. Comment noted, and I think you fully appreciate that we are putting best efforts to make this into a four-season design, which includes a lot of activation at Clerk Park throughout the winter, building upon the skating trail and some of the festivities that we want to have there. Specific to your comment about the pool, it is essentially prefabricated. Like a docking system. So the cost is nominal. And in particular, the design cost will be, very, very low. So I'm not sure that you're actually going to find any efficiencies by removing it.
That was essentially the question I asked. Thanks for encapsulating the answer so precisely after a long-winded question. Mr. Anderson?
Councillor Spina, I know that you've got a question, but I just want to follow up on that question. If it's worked into the design, Mr. Anderson, and then council decides not to proceed with the tender of that specific, or we proceed with the tender and we want to take that specific item out of the scope of work, that could be done at a later date?
That's correct.
Okay. Councillor Spina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gardy asked some of my questions there, so I won't go over those again, but I really want to kind of look at one part in the report here. And of course, I've lost it in the interim.
I thought he asked all your questions.
Yeah. It was about the repairs to the wall anyway, and in the report, it described the repairs, it described that section of the wall as in need of immediate repairs. Is there someone, and probably Mr. Ramil, to speak to that? Can you speak to the need, the immediacy of it?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, there are sinkholes that have developed behind the wall. So there's concrete sidewalk basically right up against the wall. So we do our best, Public Works attends to it and fills it with material. But at times the material escapes again and there's voids underneath the sidewalk. So it's the immediate concern is, I mean, I would call it sort of a soft closure. People still walk around it and it's not good. If we weren't doing anything with Clerg Park, we probably would have talked to the CAO and council about, funding a remediation of the wall, removing the wall, probably putting a rock revetment in and maybe like a trail on the top of the slope by now. So yeah, we need to do it.
Right, so this is something that needs to be done. We have to get this done.
I don't think there's an immediate safety concern with like the railing slumping over and people falling in. There's from time to time, it's been some maintenance headache that they have to come and fill voids underneath the sidewalk. It's put it this way, it's bad enough that we have it closed with fencing.
Right.
But we've left it for a couple of years now. We're waiting to line this up with a bigger project. Yeah.
So safe to say it's getting worse. It's not getting better, and it's not going to be cheaper.
We are monitoring it. We have our structural consultant that looks at it, I think yearly or maybe twice a year.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, just for some final comments on that, I mean, I'm not one to really like allowing infrastructure to sit and rot or get worse and increase our liability and increase the risk not only of safety to the public, but safety to the infrastructure that we have here on site. If this is something that has been neglected for this long, I think we need to act and fix it. It may or may not fit into the waterfront plan. My decision or my feelings are not really geared towards that. It's geared towards the safety of the citizens of our city, to visitors to our city, and the safety of our infrastructure that is here. We know that these projects will not get cheaper. And in fact, if we leave it and allow it to continue to deteriorate, we're going to have a much larger issue on our hands, in my opinion. And I'm sure that staff is trying to calmly articulate that to us. So I think we have to take that warning very seriously and look at what needs to be done here and get something done.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Councillor Zagordo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Anderson, just from the report, and I guess it's come out in many ways here this evening, but just so that the public is aware, and we are, myself included, regardless of the waterfront project, these are all just safety concerns that just happen to be around City Hall that need tending to. Is that correct? Regardless of the project?
That's correct.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Other councillors? I'm not sure there are others, actually. I think we might have got everybody. I just had a follow-up to Councillor Zagordo's question. Would it be fair to say is that we're doing this as an efficiency because the waterfront design plan is happening, and so we're tacking on the engineering study. But if the engineering design fits the general theme of the waterfront design, some portion of that design might be logically able to fit into the MAT tax funding in a perfect world, if we were splitting hairs. Is that right?
That's correct. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve here.
Right. And so you've kind of picked a number, and it's not the perfect number in terms of the breakdown between the engineering side and the tourism side, but it's the number you came up with after looking at it. Right?
I think just to expand quickly, if we incorporate it within this design, so then when we seek larger government funding, because it's going to incorporate the design principles of the waterfront plan, it opens us up to a broader scope of third-party funding later.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of where I was getting at with that. So, yeah, 190 and 612 or 192 and 610. I think it's a kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So I support the breakdown here that's been concluded and recommended by staff. So with that, we can have a vote on the matter. Madam Clerk, if you have read that? Yes, all in favor? Opposed? That carries.
And Councillor Kinnick was opposed.
Yeah.
So passes 8-2 with Councillor Kinnick and Councillor Scott opposed. Well,
Bring us to section 9.
so 9.1. The motion by Councillor Zagardi and Scott with respect to National Emergency Management Forest Firefighting Service. Whereas the frequency and severity of wildfires across Canada have intensified, placing immense strain on the existing provincial and territorial firefighting resources, as highlighted by recent emergency declarations and the sustained national preparedness level of 5. And whereas there is a growing national consensus, as outlined in recent public discourse and by federal officials, that Canada's current emergency management system is increasingly outpaced by climate-related disasters, and that a new proactive national strategy is required to ensure the safety and security of Canadians. And whereas proposed solutions from experts and government ministers include the establishment of a federal emergency management agency or a new national firefighting service with a shared pool of resources capable of rapid preemptive deployment to any region of the country. And whereas Sault Ste. Marie is strategically and logically positioned to serve as the headquarters of a major operational hub for such a national agency due to its unique combination of geographical, logistical, and historical assets. And whereas the city's location as a central transportation nexus with a major airport and critical road and rail connections provides an ideal base for the rapid deployment of personnel, aircraft, and equipment to high-risk areas across the country. And whereas Sault Ste. Marie already possesses a robust foundation of expertise in infrastructure in forestry and fire science, including the Sault Ste. Marie Fire Service, Sault College's Fire Science and Fire Protection courses, the Federal Great Lakes Forestry Centre, and a significant presence of the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, including the CL 415 Water Bomber Training Centre, with a new national agency which a new national agency could leverage to avoid excess bureaucracy and accelerate its establishment. And whereas the presence of a national emergency agency would not only bolster the country's disaster response, but would also provide significant economic and community benefits to Sault Ste. Marie, including high-skilled jobs and strategic federal investment. Now, therefore, be it resolved that City Council request appropriate staff to prepare a comprehensive report to investigate the full scope of advantages and feasibility for Sault Ste. Marie to be the home of a national emergency firefighting agency or a broader national emergency agency, detailing the city's strategic assets, including its central location, existing infrastructure, and institutional expertise in forestry and emergency management. outline the potential economic, social, and logistical benefits to the city and the nation of hosting such a federal entity, engage with local stakeholders, including the Sault Ste. Marie Airport Development Corporation, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and the Great Lakes Forestry Center to gather supporting data and insights, and develop a formal proposal and advocacy plan to present to the federal government outlining Sault Ste. Marie as the optimal location for this critical national agency.
Councilor Gardy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd be remiss if I didn't apologize to this clerk for the length of that. I'm sorry about that. And I have a glass of water. This, you know, in full transparency, Mr. Mayor and I had a conversation when we learned about this, you know, the challenges that we're having. Obviously, we talked about those as a country as it relates to forest fire management and the like. And then when the federal government has started talking about how they might tackle it more comprehensively as a nation, we thought that we would be in a position to be a leader in this effort. You know, I'm hearkening it back to, and Mayor Shoemaker and I talked about our efforts for the Canada Water Agency. I think staff at the time, through the comms department and enterprise services and EDC, did a great job to articulate that vision. I'd argue that, you know, we're in even a better stead as it relates to this initiative. So I am hopeful that I'll get the support of council. I'm sure I will. And for all of the reasons that I mentioned in the long-winded motion that was read, I'm hopeful we can kind of get on that. I appreciate it's a big task. I think if we're able to kind of execute sooner rather than later and articulate our ideas and why we would be an excellent place for such an agency or a hub of that agency, that we'd be in a better position for it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Gardy. Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Gardy pretty much said everything. Thank him for asking me to second this. I think it's a slam dunk.
Thank you, Councilor Scott. Councilor Dufour.
Yeah, just as a quick comment, Mr. Mayor, thank you to everyone who worked on this resolution. I think it's a great one. I think Sault Ste. Marie has a lot of the ingredients to make this kind of an agency a real success. We have a lot of expertise in this area locally that doesn't often get talked about or advertised. And I think being a border city is also an advantage here. We have a lot going for us, and you know, Councilor Gardy didn't say it, but I'll say it. We totally should have gotten the Canada Water Agency here. We were a better fit, and we had a great proposal. So let's take another crack at something. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dufour. Councilor Vezo-Allen.
Yes, I agree. We actually do have a lot of forest fire experts that are living in this area that people aren't even aware of. My only question is, has there been any preliminary discussion and support from Chief Johnson at Fire Services regarding this resolution? I know he's not here, but.
We included them as one of the, Councilor Gardy, if I may, included them as one of the agencies that would be central to the
Correct.
development of the proposal. And so if not yet, they'll be central to its to the drafting of it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilor, sorry, was that all, Councilor Vezo-Allen? Councilor Spina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fantastic motion. I think this is great work that can be done and great work done by fellow councilors. Just one thing I would like to see staff do as well in doing this. We have some great groups in town doing a lot of really amazing work with forest fires right now, and in particular with evacuations, especially through Missinaba Cree First Nation. Perhaps if they can be included as a potential partner here to help with this. I know they have a lot of things in place right now that will be beneficial to something like this. So if staff could maybe reach out there and speak with them as well, I think it'd be a huge benefit to us.
Thank you. I think Mr. Lammick's got a meeting with them on the books in the very near future. Okay, I just wanted to voice my support for it too. Thank you, Councilor Gardy and Councilor Scott for moving and seconding that motion. Councilor Gardy for doing the vast majority of that drafting. And it's, Councillor Dufour said it, we should have got the Canada Water Agency. If you look at Canada on a map, Winnipeg's not terribly close to any bodies of water that are significant, but nevertheless, we will take what we learned from that exercise and apply it to forest firefighting, I should say, and hopefully be successful in this one and build from what we've done in the past. So thank you, Councillor Gardy. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries.
And under agenda item 9.2, the Veterans Memorial Crosswalk. It's a motion by Councillors Kinnick and Bruni. Whereas the city of Sault Ste. Marie acknowledges the immense sacrifices and contributions made by the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces, both past and present. And whereas the city recognizes the importance of public art and civic space in fostering remembrance, unity, and pride in our shared Canadian heritage. And whereas the veterans-themed painted crosswalk will serve as a visible and lasting tribute to local veterans and a symbol of the city's ongoing gratitude for their service. And whereas the design of the crosswalk would incorporate respectful and symbolic elements such as Canadian flags or representations of the Canadian Armed Forces in consultation with local veterans groups and with oversight from city staff. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be requested to consult with representatives from local veterans organizations and report back to council with design, location, funding, and installation plan for a Veterans Memorial Crosswalk before Remembrance Day, November 11, 2020.
Councillor Kinnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our city already has the Memorial Gardens, the Memorial Tower, and veterans banners along Queen Street displayed. I think this is natural evolution in another step we can add to our Veterans and Remembrance Day celebrations. I think this would be a great addition to have it in that location somewhere along Queen Street, next to the Memorial Gardens, next to the Remembrance Tower. And I think we should be able to get it going for this year. And I would just like to say thank you to Christina, who reached out to me with this idea, and we worked together with her on the resolution and was able to bring it to council, and hopefully can get it passed here today and we can get it, we can see it this year from Remembrance Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnick. Councillor Bruni, anything to add? Before we get to council questions, we do have MIAC representatives here who wanted to provide input on this. So we've got Lily Mae Tremblay and Charlotte Piccolo, who they submitted written feedback. Did you want to come to the mic and share that feedback? Two excellent members of MIAC Council who are here as part of our efforts to include MIAC in the council discussions. Welcome to council, Lily Mae.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'd like to share our thoughts on this crosswalk. We think that the Veterans Memorial Crosswalk is a wonderful idea to educate the youth of Sault Ste. Marie and help raise awareness of what the veterans have done to serve our country.
Honorary colors and symbolic designs in the artwork will be sure to catch the attention of young people in our city. It can help create opportunities for youth to learn more about the sacrifices of our veterans and to admire a meaningful work of art.
We suggest that the location of this crosswalk should be the Sault Ste. Marie Boardwalk area, where many families, visitors, and youth will be able to see it.
One thing we were wondering was whether there could be a ceremony that would invite the veterans to be honored and recognized at the unveiling of the artwork. We would also like to suggest that youth get the opportunity to volunteer by helping set up, create, and participate in the event. By doing this, young people in our community could play an active role in honoring our veterans' service and learn more about their stories.
Thank you. That's all we have.
Okay, thank you, Lily Mae. Thank you, Charlotte. Councillor Dufour.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. The last line says, report back to council with the design, location, funding, and an installation plan for a Veterans Memorial Crosswalk before Remembrance Day. So is that intended to mean that the plan will come back to council before Remembrance Day, and then the unveiling will happen obviously in the next construction season. Is that accurate?
That's how I read that, but Councillor Kinnick, how?
As in 2026. Yeah, that would work. It'd be even better if it was this year, but I don't know if we can make it with the timeline, right?
Yeah, that's all I was wondering. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to commend Councillor Kinnick on bringing this forward and wanting to honor the veterans in this way. But there was some concern from the Accessibility Committee about making crosswalks forms of public art. Someone brought forward that there might be folks who experience, who have sight issues, and that these crosswalks might cause an issue for. So I wonder, the students from MIAC brought up a really great idea about potentially having this happen on the boardwalk. I wonder if this passes and we green light it, if it would potentially be considered to have it not happening in a crosswalk on a street. I didn't even know this, but those are meant for, I knew they were meant for safety, but I didn't realize the issues it brings forward to folks with visual impairments. So perhaps we could look at having it somewhere that is more AODA compatible. Those are my comments.
Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I think it's a great idea brought forward by councillors again, so thank you for that. I do want to acknowledge some what I would call some kind of negative attention in the press over this, and commend councillors for their reaction to that and helping to bring it forward in a positive way, the way that it was actually intended to come forward. And I think that the motion speaks for itself, to ask staff to complete a report and engage with all of the necessary parties to have feedback. So I do want to commend my colleagues for that as well. If we have a brief moment, I'd like to have a few questions for the MIAC students, if they have a second to come back up. Thank you so much, ladies. And sorry, we have to kind of sit in this weird, awkward way so that we can get into the microphone. So sorry, it looks kind of unique, I think, from your perspective. But thank you for coming up and giving us your feedback. I think you guys did a fantastic job. It certainly sounds like you put a lot of thought into your comments that you wanted to bring forward. One of the things I wanted to ask, and I'm sorry, I forget which one of you said it or which one of you brought it up, something about engaging youth to be involved in the unveiling of something like this. Which one was that? That was you. Okay, wonderful. Tell me how we can do that.
Get a volunteer opportunity to help set it up, maybe get supplies and be involved in learning about the stories that the veterans can share with them.
So how do you think, and I really do appreciate how you guys talked about how important it is to share stories of veterans and things that veterans have done for all of us in our country. How do you think we can best engage young people to make sure that they are aware of those stories? Because let's be honest, a lot of these things happened a real long time ago, and it's kind of easy sometimes for people to forget. And one of the important things about this, we know, is that we shouldn't forget these sacrifices that people made. So how can you guys help us make sure that young people are engaged and know these stories and that they can continue to move on into the future?
At the event of this crosswalk with the honoring, like she said, with the volunteering and getting them this help set up the event, this gathers the youth, and then possibly if we invite veterans to come and share their stories and talk to the kids and the youth, this is what they did. It was a long time ago, but it was bad and we shouldn't have it again. It ties them in with it, and then they learn, okay, well, this is our future now, so we have to protect, right?
Right, and I like that you said that. And do you think maybe there'd be a benefit in someone like you folks being community ambassadors to the young kids in our community and helping to bring them forward so that maybe the veterans don't have to come to them. Maybe the youth can go to where our veterans are and go and see them and ask them their stories and to learn a lot from places like the Legion and events like this. Do you guys think you could be ambassadors for us going forward for that?
I think that would be a wonderful idea. I know I would love to do it.
Something like that.
Awesome. Well, that's the kind of stuff that I'm hoping to see from you folks in the future. I really want to thank you for all the work you did this summer and including up to and including today. So thanks for all the work that you guys did. And please move forward, go forward and continue to be ambassadors, not only for veterans, but also for city council, for city staff and for our community. And I look forward to seeing you folks maybe sitting in one of these chairs in the near future. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Spina, and thanks, Lily May and Charlotte. Other councillors on this item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? That carries.
Item 9.3, Canadian Defence Munitions Production. It's a motion by Councillors Gardy and Zagordo. Whereas the Government of Canada has recently announced its plans to spend several billions of dollars over the coming years to revitalize and modernize the Canadian forces. And whereas there is a need globally for enhanced munitions and defence manufacturing, and whereas Algoma Steel is a significant steel producer in Canada, including specialized plate steel that is crucial for various defense applications, for example, shipbuilding, armored vehicles. And whereas Algoma Steel has explicitly stated their interest in supplying the Canadian shipbuilding and defense industries, and whereas Sault Ste. Marie has established industrial infrastructure due to Algoma Steel's long history. This includes access to transportation networks, water via the Great Lakes, rail, and road, which are vital for moving raw materials and finished products. And whereas there is an existing skilled labor pool in the region with experience in heavy manufacturing and steel production, which could be adaptable to defense manufacturing needs. And whereas locating a defense production facility in Sault Ste. Marie could significantly boost the local economy, create jobs, and diversify the industrial base of Northern Ontario, aligning with both the federal and provincial government's goals for regional development. And whereas Sault Ste. Marie's location within Canada, but relatively close to the US border, could also be seen as an advantage for cross-border supply chains or collaboration. And whereas the federal and provincial governments have already shown support for Algoma Steel's modernization efforts, which suggests a willingness to invest in the company and the region. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Community and Enterprise Services Department be requested to report back to City Council regarding the process and costs associated with conducting a comprehensive feasibility study to consider Sault Ste. Marie as a location for a Canadian Defence Munitions Production Facility or facilities, particularly focused on steel-intensive defence products, building upon Algoma Steel's capabilities.
Councillor Gardy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Before I get started, I want to acknowledge a couple of things, or a couple of individuals. I did receive a couple of emails, as I think some of you did, from a facet of the community who were voicing some concerns. I want to, validate that outreach and appreciate that I heard what their concerns are. I believe, I don't know if anybody in the audience emailed any of us, but I know you're here now, and I just wanted to welcome you to the meeting and thank you for coming. I said hi to you on the way in, but I didn't put two and two together, so sorry about that. The motion was a little long-winded again, but I think pretty clear. The emergency management fire one, along with this one, is trying to take advantage of strengths that our community has, considering how the world is moving these days. There might be an opportunity for some type of industry, as outlined in the motion, to potentially come to fruition here in Sault Ste. Marie. And the reasons I thought we would be a good location for it were in the motion. Whether we like it or not, the world's a pretty difficult place these days. All of the NATO countries, most of them have decided to increase their defense spend. But what's the problem is that they can spend all the money they want, but if there isn't a place for them to secure what they need won't be fulfilled. And it's just a sheer fact that globally, if you do any reading or research about it, there isn't, unfortunately, enough munition and or defense production capability. By no means am I trying to be a warmonger. What I'm trying to do is to put the community in a space where we can capitalize on an initiative that is going to occur globally with most developed countries, because there is a need. And, quite clearly, Prime Minister Carney has talked about this as, a national security issue, being able to produce your own defense equipment and munitions and the like. So I hear the concerns in the community. I appreciate those concerns. I think the advantages to our community would outweigh the risks to it. I don't want anybody to be in a battle that they don't have to be in, and I'd love war to stop. But the country needs something that I think our community could be instrumental in providing, and that was the spirit of the motion. And just to be clear, this motion, I think I worded it a bit differently. I read it over again than the last, and this one I explicitly asked for, what it's going to cost to do a decent job in terms of feasibility study. So I'm not instructing anybody to just do it. I appreciate that it could take some work. The sooner the better, but I also know that there are a ton of priorities for community enterprise services and economic development team. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gardy. Councillor Zagordo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to, work on the words that Mr. Gardy said, regardless of what's going on in the world, and Canada's reputation, our reputation isn't one of war. We're the kinder, gentler nation. We're usually called in when help is required anywhere around the world, even not in a war sense, but in a compassionate sense. And even under those circumstances, I think, you require some of the things that are suggested in this proposal, vehicles, munitions, et cetera, et cetera. And I know it doesn't sound like the two coincide, but unfortunately, sometimes these kinds of things are required. So I don't think that, looking at our defense and war are necessarily the words that come into play when this proposal was suggested, or the manufacturing of these products. I think Canada will continue to be a peace-loving country, looking to have peace around the world. And I think sometimes when you get involved in these situations, equipment is required. Sometimes not the equipment we like, but nonetheless, these are some of the things that are required. So I was happy to second the motion for Mr. Gardy. On another note, for the longest time in Sault Ste. Marie, we've heard that, we produce the raw product, steel, probably better than anyone else in the country. But we've never had any finishing companies or finished products. I think this lends itself to those finished products on a national scale. I think that, and again, mentioned in the proposal, we're in the middle of Canada, and this would be a Canadian-wide, thing. We are on the Trans-Canada Highway. Again, transportation, a big thing. The waterways are at our disposal. So for transportation needs in and out, I think we're a perfect location. And for this reason, and, you know, others I mentioned, I hope you would support the resolution presented to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zagordo. Councillor Bezo-Allen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. While I certainly appreciate Councillor Gardy's and Councillor Zagordo's attempt to diversify our industry and bring jobs and secure our economy, I don't necessarily agree that a munition facility is the answer. Currently, we know Algoma Steel just went to the electric arc furnace, which greatly reduces emissions. Plates currently are being used for the construction industry, automotive, energy, and defense. Their plates are used for defense applications. They also make sheets. We know that that's being well used at the tube mill, also in furniture industries. And I do agree with Councillor Zagordo in his comment that, we make raw product, but we don't finish it. We don't have that manufacturing piece. But I think if you take a look at all the different sectors that steel's being used, and hopefully in a more cleaner way, we don't know what both the environmental impact could be on munitions. We don't know in terms of cross-border what that's going to look like. And I just think of us as a community. I think when we take a look at, we even talked about, the water that surrounds us and what we appreciate in our environment. I would rather see a cleaner industry being brought forth using what we make at Algoma Steel. So I am going to not vote in favor of this resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Bezo-Allen. Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, like Councillor Bezo-Allen, will say, I commend Councillors Gardy and Zagordo for attempting to bring new industry to the Sioux. Something we did recently at the AMO conference, which we just came back from, in nearly every single delegation, to no matter what minister it was or what the topic was, we as a team made sure that the job loss of Algoma Steel was being brought up and really hammered home. And we really wanted those ministers to hear us. And we worked really hard to ensure that we do care about the job loss of Algoma Steel, absolutely. Jobs are important, well-paying jobs are important, but at what cost are we willing to sell our city and our integrity and character? I feel like I would love for us to have finishings happening, and I would support a different type of finishing. But I want to live in a world where leaders lead with their actions and words and not with bombs, guns, and body counts. For far too long, human suffering has paved the way to men's triumph over land that does not belong to them and people who did not ask to be led by them. They do not want this weak and archaic means of leadership. So it has become way too simple and acceptable to kill other people. And frankly, I'm tired of it. It's 2025, and I think that we can and should do better. And, I hear around the table people saying, I'd love war to stop. Let's make it happen then. It's not going to happen if we continue to fund munitions places. I heard somebody say that they're not going to have what they need. I hope that they don't. I hope that they don't, and they figure out a way to not send our sons and daughters, nieces and nephews, all these people to war. So for those reasons, though I commend trying to bring industry to Sault Ste. Marie, I will not be supporting this resolution today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dufour.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I share some of the sentiments of some of the previous speakers. I think that there's a lot of ways that Algoma Steel can diversify their offerings. I think that, when it comes to shipbuilding, when it comes to investments in the Arctic, locally, when it comes to potential investments in a port and in marine manufacturing, things like that, I think that there's some really good potential for our community. One of the things that does kind of caution me and concern me from just a basic policy standpoint is kind of seeing what happened, just a few years ago in London. When you're committed to making a certain type of military equipment, you are committing yourself to selling that to whoever's going to pay you for it. And, London ended up selling, or ended up having a very large amount of vehicles canceled because they were going to a Saudi government that at the time was not following international law. And I think that when it comes to munitions production, that's not the area that I think I want to see our community diversify into. And so I also will not be supporting this resolution, but I would very much support other efforts by city staff to help to continue to diversify the offerings at Algoma-Steel. I know they've been talking about getting back into I-beam construction, things like that, that'll be heavily utilized in infrastructure, things that will succeed and have a much more viable place as we look to buy more Canadian steel for all of our infrastructure projects across the country. And I think that's the area where it would be best to see Algoma go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start by saying thank you to Councillors Gardy and Zagordo for bringing this forward. I took this motion to mean more on the defense spending, whether or not we like it. And I probably can speak for everybody around this table or this council chambers that none of us like war. None of us want war. We are in a position where we are surrounded by hostile nations in pretty much every direction except for the east. And I think we should really be concerned about that. Defense spending in particular doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be selling this to warmongering countries. We have an unreliable partner to the south at this point. Canada has to take a stance and start producing their own defense, whatever it might be, right? Shipbuilding is one thing that comes to mind. I think the only people you can rely on are yourself. We've learned that it takes one election in the United States to change a partnership that's been around for, hundreds of years. And it's a different world. So I don't think any of us are in favor of, war in any means, but we're going to have to defend ourselves. Otherwise, we won't have a city to defend, unfortunately, right? And so I took it more to mean on the defense side. I think it's a great idea. I think the federal government's looking at it. We've committed to NATO spending of, I think, 5% GDP. So we should definitely be looking as a city to capitalize on something that's going to happen as a country anyways. We're positioned in a good spot. And ultimately, I think defending our country and living to the elbows up style that we've been promoting recently, this is exactly it. This contributes to that. Being self-reliant, being a country still, and not having to worry about the fact that 3/4 of our borders are hostile or have the potential of being hostile. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Bruni.
Would I be able to ask Councillor Gardy a question regarding his resolution?
Sure.
If you don't mind. Councillor Gardy, is this more specifically for the defense, as Councillor Scott has mentioned, and not selling it to other countries?
So to be clear, I don't think any of us around the table are going to set up the manufacturing facility. What I'm asking is for staff You can talk about being worried about families, but the best thing for a family and the best thing for a worker and the best thing for an economy of any sort at any level are jobs. That's the spirit of this motion. Nothing else. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gardy. Councillor Bruni, was there any other?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will be voting in favor of this because I thought it was strictly for defense, and it's not selling weapons to third world countries or other countries. So I think it's good, and exactly what Councillor Gardy said. It could start off that could create more jobs for our city. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bruni. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sincerely appreciate the discussion around the table today, and I appreciate colleagues bringing motions like this forward. I think Councillor Gardy in his opening comments acknowledged the messages received from constituents around the city raising concerns. One thing I just want to make sure that we have clear, that this motion is requesting a report come back to council with the feasibility on this. The fact that constituents have raised concerns and put them in writing and sent them to us is a good thing, because those concerns can actually be addressed in such a report that would come back to council. So I do recognize there are a lot of people in the crowd here as well today in regards to this motion. Please continue to send your thoughts forward, because that is something that staff can work on in order to provide answers to the multiple questions that have been sent in. And I do look forward to engaging people further on this as information is gathered. So thank my colleagues for bringing this forward, for the discussion, and for the constituents for coming forward too and bringing their questions. I just want to make sure they know those questions will get answered if this is approved tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Other councillors? Yeah, I mean, Councillor Gardy's hit the nail on the head. This is a report that the city of Sault Ste. Marie isn't going to be undertaking this work. The money is going to flow from the federal government to do this work. And if we can capitalize on some of that money flowing into our community to provide jobs and economic security for our constituents, I think we have an obligation to at least look at whether or not we are well suited to do that. So for that reason and more, I support this wholeheartedly. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Madam Clerk.
So it carries 7-3, voting in favor, Mayor Shoemaker, Councillor Spina, Zagordo, Rooney, Kinnick, Gardy, and Scott. In opposition, Councillors Dufour, Bezo, Allen.
Madam Clerk.
Bring us to I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolved that all bylaws under item 12 of the agenda under date September 2, 2025, save and accept bylaw 2025-136 be approved.
All in favor?
And motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolved that bylaw 2025-36 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the City Tourism Sault Ste. Marie to support the advancement of phase 1 of the Waterfront Plan be passed in open council the second day of September 2025.
All in favor? And opposed? That carries.
So that was in agreement with the exception of Councillor Scott. I have a motion by Councillor Scott and Bezo Allen, resolved that this council move into closed session to discuss one item subject to solicitor client privilege. Further be it resolved that should the said closed session be adjourned, the council may reconvene in closed session to continue to discuss the same without the need for a further authorizing resolution.
All in favor?
Thank you.
And motion to adjourn.
Bezoul, and this council now adjourned.
All in favor? That carries.